Well, Dr. Summers, thank you so much for joining me
My
to
pleasure.
have this conversation for Sinai and Synapses.
Okay.
Why don't you just say a little bit about the kind of research you do and
Okay.
even where you see the intersection between your work and your Christian faith? Because I understand you
Okay.
do consider yourself a Christian.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I uh, I do planetary studies. I study planets as an entity, how planets form, planet like the Earth or Mars, how they evolve over time, and occasionally how planets die. And they do die sometimes. So you have planets that have a life cycle, somewhat like a person might have a life cycle. Stars do too. They have a process from their birth to their death. And during that process, all sorts of things can happen. And you see some of them when you just travel around the Earth. You see weather, climate, and volcanoes, and oceans, and plate tectonics, and all kinds of things like that. And so when I study planets, I try to understand all those processes that shape what a planet becomes. We now know of over 4,000 planets in the universe. When I was a kid, it was 9. And then Pluto was demoted, it was 8. Now it's 4,000. We're discovering whole new planets at the rate of about 3 per day. I mean, think about that. Whole new worlds, 3 per day. The talk I just gave at the Parliament of World Religions, I started working on it last Tuesday, and I had to update the number of planets known yesterday because it had gone up by 52. And then this morning I looked and it had gone up by another 3. So we are discovering whole new worlds. And so there are a lot of examples out there. And each of these planets are unique. And there are more planets than there are people that have lived on Earth in Earth history. Every planet has its own life. So when I try to put together a picture of a planet from birth to death or whatever happens to it, I have to be, coherent, accurate, and follow all the scientific methodologies to help us to be quantitative, use the tools of math to put it together. But then, when I look at the pieces of it and how it works and how it plays out in our solar system, from the Earth, for other planets, each piece is remarkable in how it fits together, how this whole universe fits together to allow us to be here. So the question about where there's an interaction or intersection or overlap between my scientific work and my faith is everywhere. I mean, when I look at a glass of water, water, simple, H2O, everybody knows what it is. But yet water is remarkable. It's got this unusual property that it floats when it freezes. And everybody knows ice cubes float. But that's unusual. Most substances, most liquids don't do that. When they freeze, they get denser and they sink. But if water was different and it behaved like most substances and it would sink when it freezes, all life on Earth wouldn't be possible. That simple little aspect of how water behaves could determine whether or not you could have life on a planet. Because if the ice sunk when it freezes, oceans would freeze from the bottom up, and then you would kill all the organisms in the ocean, and that would kill the food chain. As it is, the ice freezes, creates an insulating layer on the top of the ocean, so things underneath it can stay warm and happy, and the cycle of life can keep going. The things that keep the different organisms living and participating and reproducing, all those things keep going on. That's just one tiny example. I mean, there's literally hundreds of things that I could just easily tell you. Gravity. We talk about gravity and we take it for granted. You push the laptop off the table, it's going to fall. No, everybody knows it. There's no question. But if gravity was just a little bit different, just a tiny bit different, 1% different, or even less, then if it was lower, 1%, then stars would make the elements, the complex elements that you need for your body, like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, lead, all those complex elements that help you form planets and living organisms. And if gravity was 1% stronger, stars would go through their life cycle of being born and evolving so quickly that you wouldn't have stable planets on which to have a living ecosystem for very long. And so it's like that intersection, that overlap is everywhere you look, if you look. I mean, you can deny it. Some people, I have a friend who's an atheist. He says, well, it's just a coincidence, or that's a coincidence, or that's a coincidence, or that's a coincidence. But at some point, you kind of have to say, well, there are just too many coincidences.
So you see an intelligence at work? Or...
I do. I don't know how to describe that intelligence, but I see not just intelligence. I mean, that almost minimizes it. It's like an unbelievable genius at work. You know, I mean, it's like the universe is like a symphony with trillions of different instruments working together to give you this beautiful symphony that's in harmony, that's coherent, that is mathematical, and that carries life along with it. And that's just the stuff we know. I mean, we know just a tiny bit about the universe. We've only explored a tiny fraction of our galaxy, and there are hundreds of millions of other galaxies. We don't know what else we're going to find out there. But I see it as intelligence of some sort, a guiding principle, a creator. It's almost like you have a hard time avoiding this idea, this sense that things are in some sense designed by intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I can't avoid it. I've never been able to avoid it. I've never understood how someone could be an atheist. I mean, even at 6 years old, my first telescope, I looked up in the sky and I was just in awe of what you see. I mean, this just doesn't happen. I mean, you can have some things that are coincidences. You can have some things that just happen, but not something of this complexity, of this beauty, of this symphony, of this much harmony. I don't know if that's too much, but...
No, so for you, I mean, some people take that sense of wonder into a worship service, but for you, this is an integral part of your work. You're immersed in the sense of wonder and beauty and harmony and principles that are operating.
When I grew up in our church in Kentucky, a Southern Baptist church, we would have hymns that we would sing. Mm-hmm. And one of them I remember is Holy, Holy, Holy. And you might have heard of it. Pretty staple hymn for conservative churches. And I always felt my back tingle, you know, when I kind of felt this relationship between a God who cared for me. I can look at the sky and feel the same way. I mean, it's just incredible. But yeah, it's worship. That's what I do. That's what I think is in here. Okay.
In relationship with this, you're in relationship with this.
Yeah.
Do you give this a name?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never really thought about a name of what this is. Maybe I'll take that back. I often describe it as a sense of awe, a sense of mystery, a sense of purpose. But it's a sense of connection too, because you know that you're a part of this symphony. You're not sitting out here watching it. You're a part of this ongoing process. And it's not just me. A lot of other scientists have experienced this.